People hate admitting this out loud, but sometimes your own child grows into the very thing you should have protected yourself from. I learned that truth the day my son looked at me, not with confusion, not with angst, but with the cold confidence of a man who thought motherhood meant ownership. My name is Emily, and the moment I am about to tell you is the exact moment my life shattered. The grocery bags cut into my fingers as I walked toward the guest house. That was where they had put me, like an old piece of furniture that clashed with their new decor. This was the estate I bought with my late husband. He worked himself to the bone for this land. But now, my key did not fit the front door of the main house anymore. They had changed the locks without telling me. A car door slammed on the driveway. Then I heard a voice I had not heard in months. Emily. It was my brother, Michael. The only person left who still said my name like it meant something. I stopped moving. Shame can freeze you faster than fear. When he saw me walking from behind the house instead of coming through the front door, confusion clouded his face. Why are you coming from back there? His eyes lifted toward the mansion. And why aren't you staying in the main house? You bought that place with Robert, before my throat could form a lie. Another voice cut through the air. My son. Daniel was leaning against the porch railing, legs crossed, phone in hand. He sat there like disrespect was a throne he had earned. Then he said the words that broke me, loud enough for both of us to hear. That house belongs to my wife and her family now. If Mom comes near it, I will kick her out again. The world did not just heat up, it collapsed inward. Michael turned so sharp I heard his shoes grind against the pavement. His entire back stiffened, his hands curled into fists. He was getting angry for my sake, not his. Me, I just stood there, quiet. When you have been beaten down by your own flesh and blood, your body learns a dangerous kind of silence. You use it like armor because it is the only thing that does not break. Daniel did not even look up at first. The disrespect was casual. That is the worst kind. When he finally lifted his eyes, the entitlement in them could have leveled a weaker woman. Uncle Mike. Relax, he said, lowering his hand. Me and Jessica got this handling. Mom is fine back there. This is our home now. A man has to take responsibility. He said it like it was doctrine, like threatening your mother was a rite of passage. Michael took a step toward the porch. Just one. But his body held 20 years of restraint. I knew he was seconds away from losing it. Daniel. Michael barked, his voice sharp. Watch your mouth. Daniel smirked. I said what I said, right there. In the heat of a home where my husband planted roses with his own hands. The truth finally cracked open. I was not just living behind my own home, I was living beneath the delusion of my own son. Michael turned back to me slowly, carefully, like if he touched the moment wrong, it would shatter completely. His voice dropped, trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. Emily, what happened to you? And that is where everything began to unravel. I did not answer him right there in the driveway. Some things are too ugly to say with your son sitting 10 feet away, acting like a stranger wearing your child's face. So I did what I had been doing for months. I swallowed the pain. I shifted the groceries in my hands, and I forced my voice steady. Come inside, I told Michael. Let me put these things down. He followed me to the guest house, the small square box at the back of the property. We used to use it for visiting neighbors or spillover from parties. Now, it was my whole life. Silent piles of laundry, blankets on a chair, a couple of drying dishes by the bathroom sink. It felt like a storage unit, not a home. Michael's eyes moved over everything, cataloging. He's always done that, even when we were kids. He remembers what other people miss. I set the bags on the table and busied my hands with eggs and bread so I did not have to look at him. Emily, he said softly, I asked you a question. I heard you. I said. My voice came out thin. It is just not a short answer. He pulled out a chair and sat, hands clasped, waiting. No pressure, no jokes, just that lawyer silence he gets when he knows something is wrong and he is about to peel it back layer by layer. It started with a piece of paper, I finally said. Not the hitting, not the yelling, just paper. His brow furrowed. What paper? The will. I told him. The clause Robert put in before he died, saying my husband's name out loud in that small space. It felt like opening a window and letting his ghost in. Robert was always the one who thought 10 steps ahead. When he got sick, he sat me down and mapped out every line of what would happen to the house, the savings, the land. I am protecting you from the future. Emily, he told me, including the parts you do not want to think about. I did not understand what he meant back then. I understand now. Robert put everything in my name. I continued, the house, the savings, all of it. But he added a clause about Daniel. He said our boy could only touch any of it if he showed he was stable, responsible, and respectful toward me. No violence, no threats, no desperate behavior. That was the deal. Michael nodded slowly. That sounds like Robert. The problem, I said, is that I never told Daniel that. I thought I would just guide him quietly, like a guardrail he would never feel until he got older. Who found it? Michael asked. Because he sure acts like someone promised him the world. Not him, I said. Jessica. The name tasted bitter. I remember that day clearly. The house was still full of casserole dishes and fake sympathy after the funeral. Jessica offered to help me organize Robert's office. I was too tired from grief to say no. I left her alone in there with those binders and labeled envelopes. She found the documents. I said. She saw that everything was in my name. She saw that clause about Daniel, that he had to be good. Michael's eyes narrowed. What did she do? She did not come to me first. I said. She went to him. I could still hear her voice drifting down the hallway that night, soft and poisonous at the same time. I had walked out of my room and paused when I heard her. Are you the man now? She whispered to him. How does your mom still own everything like you are a little boy? Daniel had mumbled something I could not hear. She continued. A real husband provides, protects, leads. How are you leading with nothing in your own name? She is keeping you a baby. You need to be in control. Those words seeped into his skin and stayed there. After that, his eyes changed when he looked at me. Not overnight, but slowly. Little comments about my house. Little comments about me still running things. He stopped asking and started announcing. Since then, I told Michael quietly, he treats me like I am in his way instead of on his side, all because she turned that will into an insult. The first time my son's hand met my face, it did not come out of a fight. It came out of a sheet of paper. I could still feel the weight of that night pressing on my chest as I sat in the guest house. The air felt heavy. It was a week after Jessica found the will. I started. The house felt wrong. Quiet, but not peaceful. I was in the kitchen of the main house that night, chopping vegetables for dinner. I was not sure anyone wanted to eat. The TV was on low in the living room, some sports game playing in the background. The house used to feel warm with Robert. That night, it felt like a hotel lobby, people passing through, nobody really at home. I heard their footsteps before I saw them. Daniel and Jessica came in together. They moved like they had rehearsed it. He stood taller, chest puffed out, shoulders back. She stood half a step behind him, arms crossed, eyes big and watery, like she had already been crying or was planning to. "Mom," Daniel said, dropping a packet of papers on the counter. "We need to handle something." I wiped my hands on a towel, my heart picking up a strange, fast rhythm. "What is all this?" "Just a temporary property release form," he said, "so I can manage things better. Taxes, insurance, all that. Jessica's people said it would make things easier. You are still here, but legally. I do the heavy lifting, like a man is supposed to." He said temporary, like he was doing me a favor. But the words did not match the tension in his jaw. Jessica stepped closer, her voice soft and shaky. Mama Emily, we are just trying to build, start businesses, make investments. We cannot do anything big with everything stuck in your name. It is slowing us down. It is stressing Daniel out. He is not sleeping. Her eyes glistened, but I have lived long enough to know the difference between tears and performance. Still, the tears make you doubt. They make you wonder if you are the villain. I picked up the papers. The words blurred a little. Legal phrases I did not recognize. Sections highlighted in yellow. My name, his name, the property address, around the middle. I saw a transfer of authority clause. My fingers started to tremble. I do not understand this, I told him calmly. Your dad already prepared everything. There is no rush to change anything. Daniel's jaw clenched. My dad is dead. He stepped closer. I am the man now. I should be doing this. Why do you have to control everything, even from the grave? That word, control. It came straight from Jessica's mouth. I could hear her voice in his. I am not signing anything I do not understand, I said, pushing the papers back toward him. You want to manage something, we can sit down and talk about it. But this? Number Jessica's breath hitched like she had been slapped. She put a hand to her chest. See, she cried out, I told you. She does not trust you. She would rather keep you small than let you be who you are. He turned to her, eyes swimming with pain and pride fighting in the same space. That is not what she said. She cut me off. Do not twist my words. Jessica turned up the volume, tears flowing freely now. I am just trying to support my husband, she sobbed. We are drowning and you are standing on the shore hoarding the lifeboats. My head started to pound. Daniel, we are not drowning. The bills are paid. The house is secure. There is money in the trust. You are not hurting. You are impatient. His face went red. So you do not think I can lead my own family, he shouted. That is what you are saying. I am saying you do not have to rob your own mother to prove you are a man. I shot back. The room went silent. That single word, rob. It hung in the air like smoke. His hand moved before my mind could catch up. 1 second, he was standing there. The next, my face exploded in a hot white flash. The sound of the slap cracked through the kitchen. My head snapped to the side. My hand flew to my cheek by instinct. I tasted metal. There was no camera. No neighbor, no witness, just the three of us and the echo of his palm against my skin. Jessica gasped, but it was a small sound, like she was surprised he actually did it, not that he was capable of it. Daniel's chest heaved, eyes wide, like he was as shocked as I was by what his body had decided to do. We stared at each other, mother and son, with something broken between us that could not be taped back together, slowly. I straightened up. I did not cry. The tears got stuck somewhere deep behind my ribs. I dropped my hand from my face and looked right at him. I am not signing, I told him calmly. Not now, not ever. Back in the guest house. My voice faded. Michael had not moved the whole time I was talking. His knuckles were white from gripping the table edge. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled, like he was containing an earthquake. You did not report him. Why I looked at Michael's hands instead of his face. Those fingers had signed contracts, argued cases, and pulled me out of trouble when we were young. Now, they were just waiting for an answer I was not proud to give, because he is my only son, I said. The words came out small, but the truth behind them was heavy. I carried that boy in my body, in my arms, in my prayers. Part of me kept thinking the boy who slapped me was just a moment, not a monster, that if I waited, the son I raised would come back and remember who he was. Michael's fingers uncurled. Emily, I thought it was grief. I told him. His dad gone, money on the table, wife in his ear. I told myself he was confused, worried. I kept thinking if I stayed quiet, if I loved him through it, I could fix it. I did not want him to have a record. That felt too final. I just wanted my son back. That's silence, I said. That is what they used. I did not report it. I put makeup over the bruise and told my own heart to hush. I slept in the same house with that boy, cooked for him, moved around him like you move around a sleeping dog that has already bitten you once. I hoped it was a one-time thing. My hope bought them time. They used it well. It started with a visit I did not ask for. Jessica's parents came over on a Saturday, like they were bringing peace. Her mom held a pie. Her dad carried a briefcase. Daniel is at work, Jessica said. She smiled too much when she said it. We thought we would sit with you. Her father walked straight to the recliner Robert used to love. He spoke with the tone of a man who talked his way into many rooms. We know losing Robert has been hard. I sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped in my lap. I am managing, I murmured. He nodded like he believed me. We can see that. You are strong, always have been. That is why this conversation is so important. Jessica's mother placed the pie on the table and never touched it again. She just watched me, eyes soft but clear. What conversation, I asked, keeping my voice steady. He opened the briefcase. The same kind of papers Daniel had thrown on my kitchen counter. Different font, same intent. My name, the property address. Language about transferring management rights so Daniel could lead the family forward. You and my son-in-law are at a crossroads, he said. He is trying to step into manhood, provide, lead, but he feels blocked. I felt my back stiffen. Blocked how? By a structure that no longer fits, he answered smoothly. Everything in your name, nothing in his. It makes him feel like a child, and a man who feels small in his own home. That is a dangerous thing, not just for him, for everyone. He let that sit there. Not a threat. No, just a suggestion of what might happen if I did not make it easier. We are not trying to take anything from you, he said. This is about trust, legacy. A good mother lets her son lead when it is time. Those words dug into my skin. I heard my own mother in them. The way she preached about letting boys be men, even when they were wrong. I thought about Robert's arms, the way he held my hands and said he wanted to protect me. Then I saw Daniel's face the night he hit me, pained, angry, scared. Maybe, I thought, if I make it easier. He won't feel the need to push so hard. Maybe this is the way back to the son I knew. Jessica's mom leaned forward. You have done your part. Miss Emily, she said softly, you built it. You sacrificed. Now it is his turn. Do not let fear make you stingy with trust. Fear. The word stuck in my throat because she was not wrong. I was scared. Scared of losing the house. Yes. But more scared of losing my only child completely. My fingers trembled as they slid the paperwork toward me. There was no yelling, no hitting. No threats I could repeat to a judge. Just a living room full of words about love, about trust, and letting go. I did not read every line. My eyes caught words like temporary, manageable, revocable. The rest blurred. My heart screamed no. My shame screamed yes. My fear sat there heavy, pushing me toward whatever would stop the noise. My hand moved. I signed it. Back in the guest house. I finally lifted my eyes to Michael. Saying it out loud made me feel cold and exposed, like I had handed him the proof of my own failure. He did not yell. He did not move. He just looked at me for a long, hot second, his lawyer brain and his big brother heart colliding on his face. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and sure. Em, they exploited your grief and your fear. They did not waste time once my signature dried, in days. The sound of my house changed, where Robert's jazz records and the hum of my own routine used to be. There were strangers' voices echoing off the walls, coats hung on the rack that I did not buy. Men I did not know were walking through the rooms. Jessica's father walked around with a clipboard, talking about knocking down walls, like he had been there when we poured the foundation. One morning, I walked out of my bedroom and almost tripped over a box in the hallway. My wedding photo, the big one Robert loved, had been taken down from the mantel and shoved on the floor next to a box labeled miscellaneous. I picked it up, clutching the frame. "Who moved this?" I asked. Jessica's mother looked out from the dining room. She was measuring the windows with a tape measure. "We are just making space," she said. "Do not worry, Miss Emily. You will see, once everything is in our system. It flows better. Our system." I gripped the photo tighter. Daniel walked in from outside, keys jingling, face open to the sun. He took in the scene like it was natural, like it was a plan we had all agreed on. "Daniel," I said, holding the photo, "why is our mantel empty? Why are they moving things like it is their house?" He shifted his weight, eyes darting away for a second before he reset his face. "Mom, it is not that deep," he said. "They are helping us. We did that transfer. Remember, I am managing things now. I told them to arrange things so we can actually move forward. That paper was not giving them my house," I replied. "This is still my home. It is your father's home. You cannot just erase us." He sighed loud and sharp, cutting me off. "Here you go again," he muttered. "Emotional. Always going to the extreme. That is why nothing gets done." Something in me flinched at that word, emotional. The way he said it like it was a disease. Later that week, Jessica's father called a family meeting. I stood in the living room while he pointed at walls and corners, talking about knocking this down, turning that into office space. Jessica nodded along, adding little suggestions. Daniel stood close to him, soaking in his approval. I felt like a guest in the lobby of my own life. That night, I decided I needed to reclaim something small, at least my clothes. I waited until the house went quiet, until the movement stopped. I walked down the hall to my bedroom, the same room where I rocked Daniel when he was a baby, where I sat on the floor and cried when Robert's side of the closet went empty. I reached for the door handle. It did not turn. A new lock stared back at me, silver and shiny. My heart hammered. I rattled the handle. The door sat firm, colder on that side than it had ever been. Daniel's footsteps came up behind me. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm getting my clothes," I told him. "Open this door." He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes floating to the lock. "We changed it," he said. Finally. We needed somewhere to keep important documents and things without anything getting touched. My voice stayed calm, but something inside me snapped. That is my room, my bed, my sanctuary. "You are not locking out the woman who paid for the roof over your head," he shouted then, the sound loud and annoying. "You are too emotional to live in here right now." He said the words slowly, like explaining something basic to a child. "You keep fighting every decision, stressing Jessica, stressing me. It is not healthy. You should move to the guest house, just for a while. Give me space to breathe." I turned to face him fully. "I am not moving out of my own house so you can play landlord," I told him. "You want space? Go stay with her parents." His nostrils flared. The air between us heated up. I reached for the knob again, ready to shoulder my way in if I had to. His hand shot out and closed around my forearm. His fingers dug into skin that was already bruised from the inside out. The grip was not a hit. It was worse. A controlled, measured squeeze that said, "I can hurt you more if I want to." Pain shot up my arm. I gasped, not just from the pressure, but from the shock that he would touch me like that a second time. "Daniel," I said through my teeth, face inches from mine. "Stop. Go to the guest house. Leave us be. Living here is not working anymore." His thumb pressed into a tender spot near my elbow, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying out. I pulled slowly, yanking my arm out of his grip like it was caught in a trap. I looked at my son, my only son, and I saw someone who had decided my place in his life could be shoved to the back of the property. I moved to the guest house that night with a single suitcase and a bruise blossoming under my sleeve, sitting across from Michael now. I touched that same spot on my arm without thinking. His eyes followed the motion. He put his hands on you again, he said slowly. I nodded once. No words left. Michael's face hardened in a way I had never seen. His voice dropped into something soft and dangerous. Emily, he committed a felony. Michael did not say much after that. He just stood up from my tiny kitchen table like it was on fire. He walked to the window, staring at the big house like it was a crime scene. Where is he now? Michael asked. Out front, I said. He does not go far, just far enough to pretend I am not here. Michael turned. He did not yell. He did not rage. He just walked out of the guest house door. I watched from the window. Michael walked up to the main porch. He did not shout. He did not wave his arms. He just stood there like he was in a courtroom and the judge had called his case. Daniel, he said. My son looked up, annoyed. What's up, Uncle Mike? We need to talk, Michael answered, man to man. Daniel stood up, wary. We talking now, Michael did not take the bait. You put your hands on your mother, he said, twice. And you had her sign something when she was grieving. I am going to ask you once. Do you understand how wrong that is? I could not hear every word from where I stood, but I could see the shift in Daniel's face. The casual look slipped for a second, then hardened into something else. Defense, pride, challenge. You are not here, he said, his voice loud enough to reach me. You do not get to tell me how to run my house. My house. There it was again. Michael's shoulders stayed relaxed, but I knew that posture. He was tightening on the inside. It is not your house, he answered evenly. You know that. Your father put it in your mother's name for a reason. Robert trusted you, but he trusted her more. And this is how you repay both of them. Daniel laughed once, sharp and humorless. Robert is gone, he said. He never called him Dad when he was trying to make a point. And that paper Mom signed says I am running things. You are a guest here, same as her. I flinched. Michael took a step closer to the stairs. That paper is fraud, he said, signed under pressure. After you had already hit her. If a court sees that, it won't go the way you think. You could lose more than this house, Daniel. You could lose your freedom. Something flickered in my son's eyes, a flash of fear quickly buried. He glanced toward the front door, like checking if Jessica was listening. You think you can just come in here and start throwing court words at me? He snapped. You've been gone for years. You do not know what me and my wife been dealing with. We trying to build something and Mom keeps stepping in like she is the only one who ever struggled. Michael shook his head slowly. She is not stepping in, he said. She is being pushed out. There is a difference. Daniel stood up now, closing the distance between them. Listen, he said, voice low and dangerous. Whatever problem you think you're going to create here, don't touch any paperwork. Open your mouth to anybody, and I will say, Mom attacked Jessica first. I will say she is unstable. Old folks snap all the time. Right. Who you think they gonna believe, the young couple trying to build, or the widow in the back house? My hand flew to my chest. He had thought it through. He had a story ready. Michael's head tilted slightly, like he had just been handed evidence instead of a threat. You would lie under oath? He asked quietly. Daniel shrugged. I will do what I have to do to protect my family. You do what you gotta do, Uncle Mike, but do not forget, you do not live here. You do not know nothing. The words hung between them like a rope pulled too tight. Michael did not argue. He stood there for a long beat, just looking at him. Then he turned and walked back toward my guest house. His face was blank in a way that scared me more than anger when he came inside. He closed the door gently and leaned his back against it, eyes shut for half a second. Then he looked at me. "What did he say?" I whispered, even though I already felt it in my bones. Michael's voice was steady, but there was something final in it now. "He is not confused, Em," he said. "He is calculated. He already has lies prepared. He is willing to throw you under the bus to keep what he thinks is his." My throat went dry. "So what do we do?" He did not hesitate this time. The softness was gone. Only steel remained. "You need to let me file charges." The words "file charges" settled over that little guest house like dust after a collapse. I sat there staring at Michael, my hands pressed flat against my thighs to stop them from shaking. He looked so sure, so clear, like the path was simple. Wrong was done. Law steps in, wrong gets corrected. On paper, that was true. In a mother's chest, it was different. "Michael." "No," I said finally. He blinked once. Slow. "No." He repeated. "After everything you just told me, if he goes to jail, I will lose him forever," I said, the words tumbling out faster than I could organize them. "You do not understand. That boy, he is all I have left of Robert. He is my only child. I cannot be the one to put my own son behind bars." Michael's mouth tightened. "He is the one putting himself there," he replied. "I am just reading the law." I heard him. But my mind had gone somewhere else entirely, back to another version of Daniel, smaller, softer, his head barely reaching Robert's waist. I saw them in the driveway the day Robert taught him how to ride a bike. Daniel's skinny legs shaking, Robert jogging behind him with one big hand on the seat. The way Daniel used to look back to make sure his daddy was there before he pushed forward. "Don't let go yet, Daddy," he called out, voice high and scared. "I am right here," Robert had said. "Keep pedaling, son. I got you." When Daniel wobbled and fell, he would run straight into my arms, tears and snot and little boy frustration all over my blouse. Robert had laughed, rubbed his head, told him falling was part of learning. Back then, if anybody had said that same child would grow up and raise his hand at me, I would have laughed right in their face. "He wasn't always like this," I murmured, more to myself than to Michael. He used to follow Robert everywhere, wanted to be just like him, same walk, same laugh. Losing his father cracked something in him I do not know how to put back. Michael exhaled, softer this time. "Grief explains a lot," he said. "It does not excuse putting bruises on you or stealing your house." I thought about Jessica in that picture, the way she had slid into the empty space Robert left, not as a father, but as a voice, a new authority. Daniel had always needed someone to tell him he was enough. When Robert died, that reassurance dried up. Jessica stepped in with her whispers about being the man, about taking control, about not letting me hold him back. She did not pull the trigger on his anger, but she loaded it and put it in his hand. "He is vulnerable," I said quietly. "She knows where his soft spots are. She presses them when she wants something. I see it, but he thinks she is the only one on his side." Michael sat back down, elbows on his knees. He looked tired now in a way that had nothing to do with travel. "And where does that leave you?" he asked. Besides, in the guest house with a bruise, his question sat between us. I did not have a good answer, only a mother's instinct to protect the same child who had become her danger. "I need a little more time," I said. "Please. Let me talk to him when he calms down. Let me try one more time. If you file charges now, he will see me as the enemy for the rest of his life. I cannot carry that." Michael rubbed his hand over his mouth, eyes closing briefly. "Emily, the longer you wait, the more ground you lose," he said, "legally and emotionally. People like Jessica's family count on that. They count on you loving him more than you love yourself." I swallowed hard. "I do love him more," I said. "That is the problem. I am not ready to choose myself over him. Not yet." The honesty of that hurt. Saying it out loud made me feel small and foolish and human all at once. Michael stared at me for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. "All right," he said finally. "I won't file anything today, but I am not promising to sit on my hands forever. I am going to start documenting dates, details, everything you have told me, because when this breaks, and it will, I need to be ready to move fast." I nodded, relief and dread tangling together in my chest. "Thank you," I whispered. "Just give me a little space to see if my son is still in there somewhere." He shook his head, not in disagreement, but in weary understanding. "You are still hoping for the boy on the bike," he said. "But the man on that porch is the one the law sees." The sun had dipped lower by then, turning the window glass into a dark mirror. I stood and moved to the sink, needing something to do with my hands. That was when I heard it, a crash from the main house, then Daniel's voice, louder than I had heard it in months, ripping through the quiet like a storm tearing open a roof. "Jessica, stop playing with me," he yelled, words sharp and ragged. "You think I am stupid." Another thud, a sharp muffled cry. The cup slipped from my hand and clattered into the sink. Michael was already on his feet, eyes locked on the big house. The violence hadn't stayed on me. It had moved. It had spread. After that night, the yelling, the thuds, Jessica's muffled crying. Something in the house shifted from disrespect to open occupation. They stopped pretending it was still my home. From the guest house window, I watched a locksmith truck pull into the driveway 2 days later. A man in a uniform got out with a toolkit and followed Jessica's father to the front door. I pressed my palm against the glass as I saw them change. Not just one lock, but every lock he pointed at. Front door, side door, even the door that led from the kitchen to the backyard. The keys in my purse turned to decorations in that moment. I tried one later, just to be sure. I walked up to the back door in the late afternoon when the yard was quiet. The knob did not give at all. My key slid in and turned, but nothing clicked open. It was like the house had developed its own opinion about me. I stood there, fingers resting on the cool metal, listening. I could hear faint footsteps inside, a TV somewhere, the soft clink of dishes, life happening without me in the home I had bled for. I did not knock. Pride would not let me. I just stepped back and walked around to the guest house, feeling smaller than my own shadow. A few days after that, the boxing started. It began with the hallway closet. I came by to drop off mail that had mistakenly landed in my box instead of theirs. The front door was open, the screen pulled shut. I could see Jessica's mother in the hallway, pulling my coats off hangers, the ones Robert bought me over the years, folding them without care into cardboard boxes. "Excuse me," I said, forcing my voice polite. "What are you doing with my things?" She glanced up, not startled at all. "We are decluttering," she answered, "setting up a better system. We are putting your items aside so they do not get in the way. Do not worry, Miss Emily. They are safe, in the way of what I asked." She did not answer, just taped one box shut and reached for another. I walked a little farther in, heart beating too fast, and saw more boxes lining the wall. Some were labeled decor, others old stuff. A few had my handwriting on them, Christmas photos, Daniel's school things, mixed with new ones somebody else had named. I caught sight of a framed picture of me and Robert on our 25th anniversary, half wrapped in newspaper, the glass smudged. That image of us grinning in front of the very house they were stripping made my throat tighten. "Where is Daniel?" I asked. "Busy." Jessica's voice floated from the living room. She appeared a moment later, wiping her hands on a cloth like she had been working hard at something important instead of dismantling my life. "We are just trying to streamline things, Mama Emily. The house was stuck. This way, everything is cleaner. Fresh energy, fresh energy. That is what she called erasing me. I did not fight. Not then. I felt like I was watching a flood from the roof. Too much water, no buckets big enough. It was when they got to Robert that the water finally reached my neck. Michael had gone to town that morning to handle some work calls, leaving me with a pot of soup simmering slow in a quiet I could not settle into. I wandered toward the main house, drawn the way you walk back to a grave you have already visited. The front door was propped open again. I stepped just inside the threshold, not crossing too far, and there it was. The dining table covered in items pulled from Robert's study. His cufflinks, his old watch, a stack of papers, a box I recognized immediately, dark wood with a small brass latch, his military medals. Jessica's father was standing over the table, sorting things into piles. He picked up the box, flipped it open, glanced inside, then snapped it shut with a look that said it meant nothing to him. "We do not need all this old junk," he muttered to Jessica's mother. "Most of this can go. No use leaving dead weight around." Before I could stop myself, I was across the room. "Put that down," I said, voice shaking. They both turned, surprised to see me that far inside. "That is my husband's," I said, pointing at the box. "Those are his medals. You do not touch that." Jessica's father rolled his shoulders like he was loosening them after lifting something heavy. "These were in a drawer," he said. "Nobody mentioned them. We are cleaning out things that do not serve the new arrangement. Old symbols, old energy. Those are not symbols I snapped. That is his service. Years of his life in that box. Put it back where you found it." He hesitated, then shrugged, irritated. "We can keep them in storage if it matters that much," he said. "But they do not need to be front and center. We are building a new legacy now. New legacy." He turned toward a large trash bag at the corner of the room, and for one terrible second, I saw his hand tilt like he was going to drop the box in. He changed direction at the last moment, sliding it carelessly into a half-filled box labeled miscellaneous. The sound of it knocking against other things, pens, paper, some trinket, cracked something inside me. I saw in that tiny, careless gesture exactly where I stood in this new world they were building, an inconvenience to be pushed to the side. Same as Robert's memory, my knees gave out before my pride could catch me. I hit the edge of a chair and sank into it, breathing like someone had taken all the air out of the room. My chest burned, eyes blurring as I watched them keep sorting, keep stacking. Like my breaking did not matter. I do not remember standing back up. I just remember being in the doorway again, then stumbling across the yard, the house behind me alive with movement, my side of the property heavy with silence. Michael's car was pulling back in when I reached the guest house. He saw my face before I said a word and hurried over, his briefcase forgotten on the front seat. "Emily." "What happened?" he asked, reaching for my arm. I looked up at him, vision hot and watery, and for the first time since all this started, I did not try to soften anything. "File whatever you have to file," I whispered. They came for my son while the sky was still the color of old bruises. A hard knock rattled the guest house door just before dawn, the kind of knock that does not belong to family or neighbors. I sat up in bed, heart already racing before my brain caught up. Michael was sleeping on the pull-out couch, still half-dressed from the night before, case files spread out on the coffee table. He was on his feet before I could stand. "Stay here," he said, voice low but clear, through the thin curtains. I saw them, 2 patrol cars at the end of the driveway, headlights throwing long, accusing beams across the yard, another unmarked car behind them, uniforms, dark jackets, a woman officer near the front talking to someone I recognized from the station downtown, the man Michael had spent hours with the day before. He had done it. He had filed for domestic violence, elder abuse, and fraud, like he promised, somewhere between my whisper. File whatever you have to file. And this gray morning, my brother had turned my pain into paperwork with consequences. The officers moved with a quiet urgency up toward the main house, boots scuffing the walkway. Michael stepped outside, met them halfway, shook hands, spoke in that clipped professional tone I knew from listening outside courtrooms. I could not hear the words, but I saw the nods, the exchange of a small stack of documents, the pointing toward the mansion. The house was still dark. Daniel never woke early if he could avoid it. Jessica liked slow mornings, coffee in bed, long scrolls on her phone. This kind of arrival belonged to another world, one they never believed would touch them. The lead officer walked up to the front door and knocked, firm and rhythmic. Another stood slightly behind, hand resting near his belt. A third moved off to the side, watching the yard, watching us. I stood in the open doorway of the guest house now, arms wrapped around myself. Bare feet on cool tile. I could feel my pulse in my throat. The porch light flicked on. After a moment, the door cracked open and Daniel appeared, squinting, shirtless, confusion still clinging to his face. "What is this?" he asked, voice thick with sleep. "Daniel Johnson," the officer said, reading from the paper in his hand. "Yeah," he answered slowly, straightening a little. "That is me." The officer's tone stayed calm, almost gentle. "We have orders to take you into custody," he said. "There are complaints filed regarding domestic violence and harm against an elder in this residence, as well as statements about forced signing of documents. You need to come with us." The confusion on Daniel's face shifted in an instant to disbelief, then to anger. "This some kind of joke," he snapped. In front of my house, Jessica appeared behind him in a robe, eyes wide, hair wrapped in a scarf. "What is going on?" she demanded, voice pitching high. Michael stepped forward then, not close enough to crowd the officers, but near enough for his presence to be felt. "It is not a joke," he said steadily. "They are here on real charges. You have had more than enough time to choose another path." Daniel's gaze shot past the officers and landed on me at the guest house door. His eyes narrowed. He saw the way I was gripping the frame, the nightshirt, the fear. He put it together faster than I wanted him to. "You called them," he said, voice vibrating. I swallowed hard. "I told the truth," I said. "Your uncle handled the rest." The officer stepped closer. "Sir, you need to put on shoes and come with us peacefully," he said. "We can do this the easy way." Daniel's chest rose and fell like he had just run a long sprint. He looked at Jessica, at her wide, panicked eyes. She grabbed his arm. "Do something," she hissed. "You said you had this under control that lit something in him." He yanked his arm free. "You are not taking me nowhere," he barked. "This is my property. You all got no right to show up like this." One of the officers stepped onto the porch. "Sir, the property is not in your name," he said. "We are not here about that. We are here because of the physical harm and coercion described in the complaint. If you resist, additional charges can be added." The word complaint hung in the air. It had weight. It had my voice in it, my bruises, the story of those papers and that lock and that grip on my arm. Daniel shoved the officer's hand away when he reached for him. "Do not touch me," he snapped. "You cannot prove nothing in a blink." The calm shifted. Two officers closed in, one taking his arm, the other moving behind him. There was no beating, no dramatic struggle, just practiced motions, hands guiding his wrists behind his back, metal cuffs clicking into place. Jessica screamed his name, grabbing at his shoulder until another officer gently moved her aside, telling her to calm down, that he needed space. I watched my son, the same boy who once clung to Robert's hand in parking lots, being led down our front steps in handcuffs. The sight cut through every defense I built. I felt like my heart was splitting along lines that had been cracked for months. As they opened the back door of the patrol car, Daniel twisted his head toward me. His face was a knot of rage, betrayal, and something else that hurt to look at. "Mom, you did this!" he shouted. The words hit harder than his hand ever had in that moment. With red and blue lights flashing against the walls of the house we built, something inside me finally broke all the way through. The first time I told the whole story out loud, it was not in my kitchen or my living room. It was in a cold courtroom with a judge looking down at me over glasses, and my son sitting at a table in a jail uniform that did nothing to make him look like a child again. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. My hands were already shaking before I reached the witness stand. I gripped the side as I sat, trying to keep my knees from knocking. "Emily Johnson," I answered. My voice sounded thin in the big room, but I kept going. I had come too far to turn back now. Michael stood a few feet away, legal pad in hand, suit pressed, expression calm but protective. He nodded at me once. A quiet go-ahead. "Miss Johnson," he began, "can you tell the court why we are here today?" I swallowed. The microphone picked up the soft scratch of my breath. "Because my son put his hands on me," I said, "and because he used that fear to force me to sign something I did not understand, so he could take over my house." The judge leaned forward slightly. She was a black woman, maybe a few years older than me, with tired eyes that had seen more bad days than good in that room. But when I said my son put his hands on me, something in her face tightened. "Take your time," Michael said. "Tell us what happened." Starting with the first time, so I did. I told them about the night in the kitchen, the stack of papers, the word temporary, the way his hand flew before his mind caught up. I did not dramatize it. I did not downplay it. I just laid it out piece by piece, like setting plates on a table. I told them about the second time, the new lock on my bedroom door, my reaching for the knob, his fingers clamping down on my forearm like a warning, how he told me I was too emotional to live in the home I had paid for, how I left that night with a suitcase instead of dignity. "How did that make you feel?" Michael asked softly. Humiliation rose in my throat again, like I had been evicted from my own life. I said, like being his mother had been reclassified as a problem he needed to move out of the way. I saw the judge's jaw shift at that, just a little. Then came the part that burned the most. I told them how Jessica's parents sat me down, wrapped guilt in pretty words, told me a good mother lets her son lead, how they slid the pen toward me while my heart screamed no, and my fear whispered yes, how I signed not because I agreed, but because I was tired and scared and still believed love might bring my boy back. "Did you understand that the paper would be used to treat the house as if it no longer belonged to you?" Michael asked. "No," I said firmly. "If I had, we would not be sitting here." He nodded and stepped back for a moment. The prosecutor took over briefly, asking a few clarifying questions. Then it was the defense's turn. Jessica had her own lawyer. She sat a few chairs away from Daniel, her hair done, face made up like she was attending a brunch, not a hearing. When she took the stand, her eyes filled on cue. "I love my mother-in-law," she said. "We have just been under pressure, money issues, miscommunication. Daniel can get loud, but he would never hurt her intentionally. She has been forgetful since Mr. Johnson passed. Sometimes she remembers things wrong. That was the lie they were going with, that my memory, not his actions, was the problem. But lies are hard to maintain when they bump into each other. Jessica claimed she had never seen Daniel lay a hand on me. Then she let it slip that she once stepped between us when things got heated about the paperwork. The prosecutor caught it, leaned in, asked her to explain exactly what step between meant if there had been no physical threat. Her story wobbled. She said I begged them to take over the house, to relieve the burden. But the messages Michael had pulled from my phone, me asking Daniel to slow down, to talk, to stop rushing decisions, told a different story. By the time she stepped down, the judge's face had cooled toward her, and Daniel's lawyer looked like he wished he could crawl under the table. The judge turned her attention back to my son. Given the testimony and the documented pattern of aggression and control over an elder, she said, bail is denied at this time. The court has a duty to take elder abuse seriously, and the risk of further harm is too high. The words landed like a gavel before she even brought it down. Daniel's shoulders slumped, then tensed again. He did not look at me. Michael rose one more time. Your Honor, with the court's permission, he said, there is one more document that needs to be entered into the record. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a worn but carefully protected folder, Robert's will, with the inheritance clause that started this war. When Michael slid that folder onto the evidence table, it felt like Robert had just walked into the courtroom and taken a seat beside me. The judge adjusted her glasses, looked down at the first page, and read the heading in a low murmur. Last Will and Testament of Robert Johnson. Her eyes skimmed, then stilled. Michael spoke, his voice steady. Your Honor, this is the original will drafted before Mr. Johnson's death. It establishes ownership of the marital home and includes a specific clause regarding their son, Daniel. My fingers pressed against my skirt, smoothing wrinkles that were not there. I had seen those papers before in the safety of a bank office, with Robert's hand over mine. Seeing them now under fluorescent lights and the weight of law made my chest ache. The judge flipped to the clause Michael had flagged. Read it aloud, she instructed. He nodded. Yes, Your Honor. He cleared his throat. Any inheritance or property access granted to my son, Daniel Johnson, is strictly conditional. He must demonstrate emotional stability, financial responsibility, and respectful conduct toward his mother. Any act of violence, coercion, or intimidation toward her immediately voids his access to my estate. The room went quiet in a way no church ever has. Even the air listened. Michael set the paper down. Gently. Your Honor. He continued. We've already heard testimony of multiple acts of physical aggression, coercion, and calculated control toward his mother, under Mr. Johnson's own terms. Daniel disqualified himself before he ever tried to claim authority. Legally and morally, he had no right to treat this house or this woman as his property. The judge leaned back, eyes lingering on the page. I watched her mouth tighten, watched her tap the pen slowly against the bench. As she thought, that pen tap was a countdown for Daniel's illusions. At the defense table, my son stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight a muscle ticked near his temple. I could not tell if he was hearing the words or if his mind had already built a wall around them. Jessica, though. Her reaction was different. Her eyes flicked from the judge to Michael, to the paper, then to Daniel. Her face shifted in tiny telling ways, first confusion, then realization, then the kind of anger that does not come from love, but from watching an investment go bad. She had married a man she thought was the heir to a house, land, and whatever money Robert left behind. Now, in a few sentences, she was learning he never had guaranteed access to any of it. Every dollar, every brick depended on how he treated me, and he had already failed that test. Miss Johnson, the judge said, turning her attention back to me, did your son know about this clause? No, Your Honor, I said. We never told him. His father wanted it there as a safeguard, not a threat. Daniel only knew everything was in my name. Jessica found the clause. She used it to say I was holding him back. The judge's eyes moved to Jessica. You saw this document. Jessica wet her lips. I saw that it was in her name. She answered carefully. I did not study all that language. The judge did not argue. She just nodded once, like she was filing that answer away with all the other cracks in Jessica's story. Very well, she said, but the language is clear. This court recognizes the clause as binding intent. Any inheritance claim by Mr. Daniel Johnson is revoked by his own actions toward his mother. The gavel did not fall yet, but the sound might as well have. Something final moved through the room. Daniel's shoulders flinched, for the first time. His eyes slid toward me, just a glance, but it carried 12 kinds of hurt, betrayal, shock, wounded pride, like I had written that clause myself instead of his father, trying to protect both of us. On the row behind the defense table, Jessica shifted slightly away from him. It was small, almost nothing, a few inches of space, her hands folding into her lap instead of resting on his chair. But I saw it. That was the moment she understood. The man beside her was not a gateway to wealth and security. He was now a man in a jumpsuit with no guaranteed future and no legal right to the house she tried to conquer. Michael moved to the side, done speaking for the moment. The prosecutor summarized the violent acts, the coercion, the forced signing, the clause. Daniel's attorney tried to object, to suggest stress and emotional misunderstanding, but the words floated weak in the face of Robert's clear written intent. This court, the judge said slowly, is deeply concerned by the pattern of behavior toward Ms. Johnson. We also find that any property transfer obtained under this kind of pressure is invalid. Coercion voids consent. The alleged transfer of authority carries no legal weight. Invalid, voids, no legal weight, plain words, heavy meaning. They rolled through the courtroom like a slow, steady wave, washing away the story Daniel and Jessica's family had been telling themselves. Jessica's father, seated in the back, shifted in his chair, face tight. The empire he thought he had built with a pen and a soft voice was starting to crumble under a woman with a robe and a gavel. As for Jessica, she did not cry this time. She did not reach for Daniel's hand. She sat very still, eyes unfocused, lips pressed together. I could almost see the math in her head. The house no longer guaranteed. Daniel's access cut off, his temper on record, his future uncertain. During a brief recess, I watched her stand and step away from the defense table altogether. She walked to the hallway near the bathrooms, pulled out her phone, and dialed with quick practiced fingers. Her back was to us, but her posture said everything. Shoulders straight, chin lifted, voice low and controlled. I could not hear the words, but I recognized the tone. Not a wife calling a husband's friend, a client calling for separate help. Jessica was hiring her own lawyer. If the clause ended Daniel's dreams, what happened next ended his marriage. It started with a stack of papers Michael slid across the prosecution table, printed screenshots, neatly clipped together. I had seen some of those messages when they first came in, glowing on Daniel's phone while he smirked at the screen. Back then, I thought they were just couple talk. I did not know they were bricks in the wall going up between us. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, we would like to recall Mrs. Jessica Johnson to the stand. She had changed since the first hearing. The soft, innocent wife routine was gone. The makeup was sharper, the clothes more business than brunch. Her own lawyer walked beside her now, not Daniel's. They did not even glance at each other as she passed his table, once she was sworn back in. The prosecutor began gently. Mrs. Johnson, earlier you described your relationship with the defendant's mother as loving but strained. You also denied encouraging any conflict between them. Is that correct? Jessica folded her hands, eyes wide. Yes, she said. I tried to keep the peace. Daniel can get overwhelmed. I just wanted him to feel supported. The prosecutor nodded, then lifted the clipped pages. These are text messages from you to the defendant, obtained with a court order from his phone records. I would like to read a few aloud. Jessica's lawyer shifted in his seat. She stiffened just a fraction. On March 12th, the prosecutor read, You texted. You are the man of the house. You cannot let your mom keep running things like you are still a little boy. Did you send this? Jessica swallowed. Yes, she said quietly. I was trying to encourage him. On April 4th, the prosecutor continued. You wrote, Your mom treats you like a child if you do not take control. She never will respect you as a husband. Is that your message as well? Jessica's jaw clenched. I sent that, she admitted, but I did not mean for him to hurt her. The prosecutor did not push that point yet. She flipped to another page. On May 19th, 2 days before Ms. Johnson was moved to the guest house, you wrote, "If you do not take control soon, I will rethink this marriage. I did not sign up to live under your mama." She paused. Do you deny sending that? The room was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. Jessica stared at the table for a long second, then lifted her chin. No, she said. I sent it. You understand? The prosecutor said calmly. That these messages show you consistently pressuring your husband to take control of his mother and her property. You may not have told him to strike her, but you tied his worth as a man and your marriage to how much he could push her out. I never said hit her, Jessica insisted. I was talking about boundaries, not violence. The prosecutor nodded like she had expected that answer, and yet, she replied, within days of these messages, your husband assaulted his mother and forced her out of her own bedroom shortly after. You and your family began treating the home as your own. Whatever you claim you meant, this court will consider what actually happened. Jessica's lawyer objected to the tone, muttered something about interpretation. But even his voice sounded thinner now. The damage was already done. I risked a glance at Daniel. His shoulders were hunched, eyes fixed on Jessica like he was seeing her for the first time. Those messages were not new to him. He had lived them, but hearing them out loud, in front of a judge with dates and consequences attached, peeled back something he had refused to look at. She had been his echo chamber, his cheerleader, his reassurance that the cruelty made sense. Now she was up there under oath, carefully stepping away from the flame she helped ignite. Mrs. Johnson, the prosecutor said, her voice softening just a hair, do you accept any responsibility for pushing your husband toward this? For a moment? Jessica looked almost human. Her eyes glistened, but the tears did not fall. I accept that I should have chosen my words better, she said. I accept that I pushed him to stand up for himself, but I do not accept blame for his choice to lay hands on his mother. That was him. The words landed like a door closing. They finished with her shortly after, when she stepped down. She did not move toward Daniel's table. She walked straight past it, chin high, lawyer at her side. He watched her go, his face tight and pale, cuffed hands hidden under the table. Later that week, back at the guest house, Michael came by with more papers in his hand. I had started to hate the sight of manila envelopes. What now? I asked, my voice tired but steady. He sat down and slid the top document toward me. This was filed this morning, he said. Jessica's attorney submitted a petition at family court. She is seeking legal separation from Daniel. I stared at the page. Her name on one line, his on another. The word separation sitting between them like a final verdict. The woman who had told him he was not a man unless he stood against me was now stepping away. Leaving him to face the storm she helped call down, the day they gave me my house back. It did not come with cheering. It came with paperwork and a judge's tired voice. I sat in the same courtroom, in the same seat, with the same ache in my chest. Daniel was brought in from holding, wrists chained to his waist. Jessica sat several rows back this time, not beside him, eyes fixed on some point above the judge's head. Her parents were there too, dressed sharp, faces stone. On the matter of property control and alleged transfer, the judge began. This court has reviewed the will, the contested document, and testimony regarding the circumstances under which Ms. Johnson signed. I went still. That one paper, my shaking signature on a day I barely remember wanting to be awake, had turned my life upside down. The court finds, she continued, that the signature was obtained under significant emotional pressure and in the shadow of ongoing physical intimidation. Michael did not move, but I felt him focus beside me. Coercion voids consent, the judge said clearly. The transfer document presented by the defense is invalid and unenforceable. Legal ownership of the Johnson residence remains solely with Ms. Emily Johnson. The words did not rush in. They settled slowly, like rain after a long drought. Mansion ownership restored. The house had always been mine on paper. Today, it became mine out loud, behind me. I heard Jessica's mother inhale sharply, a sound like someone had slammed a door in her face. Her father's jaw clenched. No outburst, no scene, just silent fury. The judge was not finished. Furthermore, she added, given the pattern of manipulation and the involvement of non-owners in attempting to restructure the household without Ms. Johnson's informed consent, this court orders that all individuals other than Ms. Johnson must vacate the premises within 48 hours. Vacate. 48 hours. She looked toward the prosecutor. Law enforcement will supervise compliance, she said. We will not tolerate further intimidation or delay. When the gavel finally fell, it was almost gentle. People started to rise. Benches creaked, papers rustled, shoes shuffled toward the aisle. I stayed seated, hands curled around the edge of the pew. It took a second for my body to remember how to stand. Michael touched my elbow. Come on, Em, he murmured. You need some air. We stepped outside into the brightness. The sun felt different on my face, not softer, just honest. No pretense. So that is it, I asked quietly. They really have to leave, yes, Michael said. They can appeal if they want, but that won't stop the vacate order. 48 hours. With officers there. They cannot claim confusion. I nodded, more to myself than to him. 48 hours, and the house would be empty of everyone except the woman who had once filled it with hope. They scheduled the supervised move out for the next afternoon. 2 patrol cars pulled up right on time, lights off, engines low. The officer spoke with Jessica's parents at the door, showed them the order again, set the rules. No harassment, no damage, no blocking access. Daniel was not there. He was still in custody. For once. His absence made the house feel less dangerous. I stood on the walkway, not on the porch. I watched them come in and out. Jessica's mother carrying decorative pillows and kitchen gadgets. Her father wrestling suitcases down the steps. Jessica herself moved slower, gathering clothes, shoes, small boxes from the bedroom that used to be my sanctuary. Nobody shouted, nobody cursed. The only sounds were footsteps, doors, the trunk of their car closing and opening, the murmur of officers keeping count. Cold silence stretched over all of it, thicker than anger, at one point. Jessica looked up and saw me. Our eyes met for barely a second. There was no apology there, no challenge either, just a weary acceptance that the story she had tried to write over mine had been erased. She looked away first. They loaded the last box. An officer walked through the house one final time, checking rooms, making sure nothing had been accidentally left behind to maintain control. When he came back out, he nodded to me. "Property is clear, ma'am," he said. "From this point on, it is yours alone, yours alone." The cars pulled off one by one. The driveway emptied. The yard quieted. The house stood there, big and still, like a body that had survived surgery and was waiting to breathe on its own again. Michael came to stand beside me on the walkway. He did not rush me toward the door. He just stood there, letting the moment sit. "You ready?" he asked softly. "Not yet," I admitted. My eyes stayed on the front steps. I need a minute to remember how to walk in as the owner, not the intruder. He nodded. "Take your time," he said. "The house is not going anywhere now." We stayed like that for a few beats, the afternoon stretching out around us. Then he cleared his throat. "There is one more thing," he said, reaching into his briefcase. "I have been holding on to this until the dust settled a little." He pulled out a smaller envelope this time, worn at the edges. My name written across the front in Robert's handwriting. My heart squeezed at the sight of those familiar loops and angles. "What is that?" I whispered, already knowing. Robert's final letter, Michael said gently. He left it with the lawyer who drew up the will. Asked that you get it when things got like this. He placed it in my hand. It was light. It felt heavier than anything I had carried in months. I held that envelope like it could burn me or bless me, depending on what was inside. Michael took a step back when he put it in my hand, like he knew this moment belonged to just two people now, me and the man who wasn't here anymore, but somehow still was. I will be in the kitchen, he said quietly. Take your time. The house was empty of everyone else. No Jessica, no boxes, no strange voices. Just my footsteps echoing on floors I had scrubbed with my own hands. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch facing the mantel, where I had already put Robert's medals back in their proper place. The light coming in through the window caught on the brass, soft and steady. I looked down at my name on the envelope. He always wrote it the same way. Looped T-strong, final stroke on the H. My throat tightened. For a second, I thought I was not ready. Then I remembered how much had already been taken without my permission. This, at least, he meant for me. I slid my finger under the flap and opened it. His handwriting stared back at me. Not typed words, not legal talk, just Robert. The way he wrote grocery lists and birthday cards. A little uneven when he got tired, strong when he was sure. Emily. The letter began. I read it in his voice. He told me he had started writing after the second time he caught Daniel talking about what is mine when you are gone, instead of how are you feeling today. He did not say it to cut our son down. He said it because he loved him enough to see the parts that scared him. I have seen something growing in him. He wrote, not evil, just entitlement. A belief that being our son means being owed things instead of being trusted with them. He said he had watched the way Daniel's eyes lit up more at talk of property than at talk of responsibility, how he brushed off gentle correction, how he started measuring himself against what other men had instead of who they were. I know you, Robert wrote. You will excuse it. You will say he will grow out of it. You will love him past where it is safe to stand. I had to put something in place to protect you from that part of yourself. That was the clause. Not a punishment for Daniel, but offense for me. He explained why he trusted Michael with the will, said my brother had a kind of backbone I sometimes refused to have when it came to our son, if things ever get ugly. He wrote, I need you to let Michael do what you won't let yourself do. Let him protect you, even from Daniel, if it comes to that. My hands trembled as I read those lines, every part of me that had said, don't call the police. Don't file charges. He is your only child. Felt seen and gently challenged. Then came the part that broke me open. If you are reading this, something went wrong. Robert wrote, maybe I am gone and you are trying to hold everything together with your bare hands. Maybe the boy I love forgot who raised him. Whatever happened. Listen to me. Do not choose guilt over peace. Do not stay in harm's way because you feel bad for the person hurting you. A tear slipped down my cheek and landed on the paper, blurring one of his words. I wiped it quickly like I could undo the damage. My last wish for you. He wrote, is not that you keep this house at any cost. It is that you keep yourself. If that means saying no to our son, say no. If that means walking away from his chaos, walk. Do not let my memory chain you to suffering. I did not build this life so you could bleed inside it. By the time I reached the end, I was not crying from fear. I was crying because someone had finally given me permission to stop feeling like a traitor for saving myself. I pressed the letter to my chest and let the sobs come. Ugly shaking ones that left salt on my lips and loosened something in my back that had been clenched for months. For the first time since this all started, I was not imagining what I could have done differently. I was just letting go. When the tears slowed, I stood up on unsteady legs, walked over to the mantel, and set the letter beside his medals. His service to this country was in that box. His service to me was in these pages. Both deserved a place of honor. I was still standing there when Michael's phone buzzed in the kitchen. I heard him answer, voice low, then fall silent for a moment. He walked back into the living room, face unreadable. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice rough but calmer than I felt. He studied me like he was weighing how much to say, then chose the whole truth. "That was the jail," he said softly. "Daniel has put in a request. He wants to see you." The morning I went to see my son in jail, I put on clean clothes, slipped Robert's letter into my purse, and checked my face in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was not the one they pushed into the guest house. She stood a little taller. Michael offered to drive. I let him, but I told him I would go in alone. He nodded. "I will be right out here." The jail smelled like bleach and tiredness. A deputy walked me through the metal detector, past buzzing doors, into a row of glass booths. I sat, picked up the cold plastic phone, and waited. My hands were damp. But my spirit was steady. They brought Daniel out. The orange uniform stripped the performance off him. No porch, no patio chair, no phone in his hand, just my son, shoulders rounded, eyes restless, walking like the floor underneath him could not be trusted. He sat on the other side of the glass, lifted the receiver, and stared at me like I was a stranger he almost recognized. "Mom," he said finally, his voice cracked. "You look different." "I am," I answered. His throat bobbed. The words rushed out. "I am sorry for yelling, for putting my hands on you, for letting Jessica and her folks hype me up. I was mad at Dad for dying, mad at you for having everything in your name. I felt small. I did not know how to handle it. I messed up. Some of it was clean apology. Some of it was still leaning on feelings instead of choices. I let it sit. For the first time in his life. I did not hurry in to mop up his guilt. When I stayed quiet, he shifted in his chair. "I know you probably hate me," he muttered. "Jessica gone. Her parents acting like they do not know me. I lost the house. I lost you. I ain't got nobody left." "You are not completely alone," I said. "You have got God if you want him. You have got time. You have got chances." I let my voice sharpen just a little. "But you do not have the right to my body or my house anymore. Not like that. That part is over." He flinched. "So that is it, you done with me?" Once that question would have broken me wide open. Now I could feel Robert's words in my chest. "Do not choose guilt over peace," holding me upright. "I will always be your mother," I said slowly, "but I will never be your victim again." He closed his eyes like the sentence hit bone. A tear slid down his cheek. "Mom, I do not know how to fix this," he whispered. "That is not a quick thing," I told him. "That is years, with truth, with help, with you deciding you are done being the man who put his mama out of her own house." I took a breath. "I forgive you enough not to stand where you can hit me again. The rest is on you." He looked up, searching my face for the softness I used to hand him on a plate. I kept my shoulders square and my hands still. "You gonna come back?" he asked. "To visit I do not know," I said, because lying would have been its own kind of harm. "Right now. I need distance to heal. You need distance to grow. If one day those roads meet, we will see, but I am not promising you comfort while you are still dangerous to me." The hurt in his eyes was real, but under it, I saw something new trying to wake up, understanding, small and scared, but there. A guard tapped the glass. Time. Daniel pressed his palm against it. My hand twitched. Muscle memory wanted to meet his. I didn't lift it. I gave him a small nod instead. "Take this time seriously," I said. "Do not waste what it is costing all of us." I set the phone down and stood. I walked out without looking back. That was my last kindness to myself. Outside, the air felt wider. Robert's letter rested against my hip like a quiet hand. Michael was leaning on the car, watching the doors. When he saw my face, he did not ask a single question. He just opened the passenger side. The ride home was quiet, but it was not heavy. It felt like driving out of a storm. You finally decided to leave. We pulled into the driveway, my driveway. Michael squeezed my hand once. "You got it from here," he said. I stepped out and walked up the path I had once taken with my head down. Today my back was straight. No strange cars, no extra voices, just my house, waiting. I stood at the front door, pulled my key from my pocket and slid it into the lock. The turn was smooth. The click sounded like a soft yes. Then I opened the door and stepped into my mansion alone. No husband, no son beside me, but with my dignity, my power, and my peace finally restored.